Well, hello again and welcome in wherever you are today and wherever you're listening from. I'm so happy to have you over to feast upon God's Word together. Get your plate ready today and take a seat. It's the 44, which is Matthew 4:4. Man cannot live on bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Let's eat. I'm your host, Jed Yancey, and many of you have been around at Central these last few weeks where we've finished a series of lessons on God's investment tips. And this last week, we talked about investing in the future. And so much of what we talked about this week is investing in your future here on this earth, like in investing now to be able to one day lead. Investing now to be able to one day teach, investing now to be an example to the next generation, investing now in the future of the church, investing now in our kids that are the future of the church. Like lots of investing in our future that can be done in the right here and right now, that we will see hopefully come to fruition and we'll see that return on investment while we live our lives on this earth. And while we spend a few minutes at the end talking about this next one that we're going to talk about today, we spent the least amount of time on this, but it's perhaps the most important, and that is investing in our future when it comes to eternity. And so for our 44 today, I want to take a deeper look at this and only this, and investing now in the right here and the right now for our future in eternity. Now, as you know, it's a whole lot easier to set our sights here, to see things here that are on this earth. And I mean, what is so natural for us is to see or to hear this word invest and consider only our earthly future, most especially as I brought up Sunday, like investing now for retirement, for those days when I choose to no longer work or I'm unable to work, or maybe it is that we hear this word invest and we think investing in education so that my future self on this earth is secure in a job or in a career or financially because of that education. But let me ask you here, and hopefully you take this ask or this question very seriously. How often do you consider what you're investing now to secure your eternal future? You know, the concept of our investing in eternity ties directly back to what Jesus taught in Matthew chapter 6. Very simple words, but super deep and very important, where he says, don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourself. Set aside, store away, put aside, invest in yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroy, and where thieves cannot break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Invest for yourselves these treasures in heaven. Like we spent some time again last Sunday speaking about this a little bit, specific to the urgency in which Jesus is preaching to here. Like nowhere in here is it a wait around till later kind of thing, but just like investing for those years when I'm retired and setting aside monies now for those years in my life, I must right now in this life I live consistently, constantly be investing in my future in eternity. So the question is today, are we doing that? Do I do that? Do you do that? Do we consider that? And now most of you know that Jesus also told a parable a little bit later in Matthew chapter 25, the parable of the talents, that I think illustrates this really well. As you know, the short version is a master entrusts his servants with different amounts of money and talents. And those servants that invested wisely and multiplied their talents at the end of the parable are commended and they're rewarded for that. But then, of course, there's the one who is given a thing, but did nothing, and is called out as being wicked. He's called out as being lazy and worthless. And you know what follows this parable? A very real and very clear picture of eternity that we're talking about. Matthew 25:31 through 46. And that picture is this, that there's a place that has been prepared for you and for me, and that place is heaven. And there's also a place that's been prepared for the devil and for his angels, and that place is called hell. And I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but I find it interesting that a jump is made from a parable like the parable of the talents to this eternity, heaven, and hell. But what's even more interesting is you go back to the two slaves that did invest their talents and they doubled up. What is said to them both is this inside this parable: enter into the joy of your master. But then on the flip side, what is said to the one slave who did nothing is said this: throw out the worthless slave into the outer darkness. In that place, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I mean, just based on that, like, do you reckon Jesus was for real in saying back in the Sermon on the Mount to invest or store away or lay aside for yourselves treasures in heaven? As I think about this more, I hope I'm not alone in saying how hard this is to keep on the forefront of our minds. Like, what's in front of me all the time right now is to consider and to hold in higher regard my future here, my life here, my children's life here, and investing right now in prolonging my life here, investing now in making myself look good in this life here, investing in what makes me feel good, investing in what makes me happy here. But what about eternity? What about there? And how does that fit into the equation of what we got going on here? Like I shared on Sunday the passage from James 4 that talks about how short life is. It's like the morning fog. It appears for a little while and then it's gone. It's fast and it's quick. It starts, it's only for a moment, and then you're gone. But what about eternity that never ends and is not like a vapor? Isn't it crazy that we do more of our investing in these earthly things, these things that are temporary, these things that are enjoyed and do make us happy, but it's for such a short period of time, when the real enjoyment and the true happiness is a home in heaven for all of eternity? The joy that awaits us. I mean, I'm guilty as charged. And all I think about sometimes, as I reflect on this, is this little piece of time, this small window of time that is my life. And I'm just so consumed with it. And I'm going to work really hard right here in the right here and now and plan it all out. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do the other so I can enjoy this teeny tiny little section of vapor like years that are to come. We get so caught up in some of the same things that Jesus addresses in another place in his Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 6. In fact, they are things that cause us great anxiety. Questions like, what am I going to eat? What am I going to wear? What will I drink? What will tomorrow be like? Well, the real tomorrow is eternity. And as Christians, well, excuse me, I'll speak on me. As me, I myself should be thinking on that tomorrow a whole lot more than I do the ones that consist of the sun going up and the sun going down and the sun going up and the sun going down. And so my question again is, do you, do we get so consumed by living for these few vapor-like years on this earth to where we lose sight of where our true residency is? And if so, what in the world can we even do about it? How do we change? How do we shift our investing and our focus and our attention and our aim to always being here and now and move it to where it belongs, which is eternity in heaven? And so you're 44 today. I've just got two things that I think can help. Number one is to understand that that eternity is in you to begin with. There's something super amazing about setting our sights and our aim and our focus and storing up treasures in eternity the way that we should. And it is this, that it's already in you. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 11 tells us that God has set eternity in the human heart. And what that means is that, technically speaking, you don't have to go looking far and wide and dive down deep to find where your focus should be. God has put it within you and me, this desire and this fire within us to long for eternity and to seek that place that's been prepared for us. But that's not all. Because while God has placed eternity in our hearts, what we also read here is that nobody can even begin to imagine what God has done from the beginning to the end. While that is put within us, we cannot even begin to fathom what it will be like, how beautiful it will be. In fact, I would suggest we don't even have the words to express what that tomorrow is really like. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 9, he quotes back from the prophet Isaiah, and he says, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those who love him. And so a simple question for us in regards to this: how can we not want to invest our time and our effort and our talents and our resources to live for all of eternity right there in the place that he's prepared for you and I? Number two, easier said than done, I know, but make a commitment to shifting your eyes there and have what you do here be about what is to come there in eternity. Back to Paul, I love the way he puts it in Philippians chapter 3. Like, he doesn't have it all figured out on this earth. Neither do I. He hasn't obtained anything yet. Neither have I. He isn't perfect. Neither am I. But you know what he does know? He will commit himself toward pressing on toward the goal. And what is that goal that he speaks of? But the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. That little point, that blip on the timeline that is my life, where everything I've done and all I've truly invested in here in this vapor-like life determines where I will spend all of eternity. He goes on to say, keep your eyes fixed there and your focus there. Why? Well, the best part of your 44 today, Philippians chapter 3 and verse 20, our citizenship is in heaven. That's why. And it is from there that right here, we eagerly wait for the Lord. While you eagerly wait in joyful anticipation for that day where we will be transformed and live forever with him, invest right here and right now for your home in heaven that is there. For that's your future. And that's where your true citizenship is. I love you guys. I thank you as always so much for listening. And until next week, keep on eating.